Coming up, mere moments from now, an exclusive interview with the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. We've got a huge show for you today. We're going to talk to the Vice President. We're going to get your reaction to that interview right away, right here on Rumble. And then going forward, we're going to talk about the bloodthirsty attacks by the left all across the country. How did the left become so bloodthirsty? And how is President Trump and his administration responding to this? From every agency to the nation's police officers to our very own Dan Bongino, now Deputy Director of the FBI. Their responses to all of this chaos ahead on this program, a special edition of Vince. But first, you know about data brokers, those greedy tech companies that are spying on your online activity. They then compile it and they sell that info to other companies and even foreign governments. And this is why we use an app called ExpressVPN. Because ExpressVPN is a company committed to protecting you from the big brother data brokers. With ExpressVPN, 100% of your online activity travels through secure encrypted tunnels, and ExpressVPN also hides your IP address. Without this number, a data broker has no valuable information about you to sell to the next shady company. ExpressVPN also just rolled out a brand new feature for U.S. customers called Identity Defender that will get your data removed from data brokers' files, monitor the dark web for your leaked information, and then alert you when somebody tries to use your social security number. This isn't about being a shady person or looking up shady things on the internet. This is about your right to privacy. Protect yourself with ExpressVPN because it's your right. Right now, you can get an extra 4 months for free when you use my special link. Go to expressvpn.com/Vince. That's expressvpn.com and get 4 extra months of ExpressVPN. That's expressvpn.com/Vince. Well, it is an exciting show today because we've got the Vice President of the United States joining us. He's going to be here in just a moment. We've got a lot to get to. My thanks to you all across the country offering all sorts of excellent questions for the Vice President of the United States. I'll get a chance to ask some of those today and really looking forward to this. This has been such a fantastic launch week, I would say, for Vince. So we're starting it off, of course, with Tucker Carlson. And then we've got the Vice President of the United States today. In studio tomorrow, I'll be joined by Donald Trump Jr. So we've got a lot to get to. But the boys are telling me that I do have the Vice President of the United States standing by. That's right. All right, now joining us live here on Vince, the Vice President of the United States of America, J.D. Vance. Sir, good to have you with us. Not yet? 5 seconds? Is that what I'm being told? I love this. Well, I can wait for the Vice President of the United States. Hilarious.
Vince, how are you?
There he is. All right, the Vice President. Hello, sir. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you so well. Thank you very much for that. First of all, congratulations on all of this. I think a lot of people are excited about the way this presidency is going and your role in all of this. Can you talk to me about that? What is your relationship like with President Trump, and what has he entrusted you with as the Vice President of the United States?
Well, yeah, it's one of the funny things about our system, right, is the vice president doesn't have any formal power. So I see my role fundamentally as trying to help the president do whatever he needs to do. And so that's made me more of a generalist. There's not a particular issue where I've sort of made just my issue. I think the president and I work on everything, and obviously I take direction from his leadership, but I try to implement the agenda as well as I can. And that's what I've been doing. And it's been a lot of fun. Because, like traditionally vice presidents will be a little siloed, they'll pick sort of one or two things and just focus on that. I feel like the president has empowered me to be involved in everything, and that's made the job a lot more fun than I think maybe it would otherwise be.
It seems like in a way that you're kind of like a hand in a glove with the guy because you know his timings, and he definitely creates space for you. We saw that in your exchange with Vladimir Zelensky when he showed up at the Oval Office, and it definitely seemed like President Trump just placed a lot of trust in you for a very high-stakes international diplomatic situation. What was that like, that moment?
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. And, the background on that is that I think it was a Polish journalist who had asked a couple of unfair questions and then asked a third unfair question. I answered it, and then obviously Zelensky didn't like my answer, and he jumped in. And really the president could have said, well, hey, I'd like to take that, or, he could have shot me down or disagreed with me. But he actually empowered me, I think, to participate in that conversation. And you're right, it's a little bit his leadership style where when he has trust in somebody, he sort of just lets them do what he thinks they need to do. He doesn't try to micromanage you so long as he actually trusts you to do the right thing. And that's certainly been, you saw it publicly with that particular exchange, but I've seen it privately a lot too. And, I just try to do the best job I can. I try to remind myself that it's a blessing to be here. And if the president gives me something to do, I'm going to try to accomplish it as best as I can.
It's amazing. He does have a lot of trust in you. Was there any moment during that conversation where you thought to yourself, before you started speaking, you're like, oh my gosh, this guy Zelensky has no idea what he's doing right now. He's like, what he's about to walk into.
Well, so let me just say this, so I don't cause a diplomatic issue here, Vince.
Okay.
We've had some good conversations with Zelensky since then, and I think that we're all sort of aligned on trying to bring this conflict to a close. But in the moment, I think there was some frustration, and I frankly think some of it was probably a language barrier issue, where he seemed to be disagreeing with some of the president's substantive answers, shaking his head or making some statements that I think he just didn't quite understand what the president was trying to do. And I understand, frankly, Biden did whatever Zelensky told him to do. In some ways, over the last 4 years, Zelensky was more president of the United States than Joe Biden was. And so he comes in and he has this president who's a strong personality, a strong leader. And so I get that it took a little bit of time for him to sort of understand where we were coming from. But fundamentally, look, the president has said the war has to stop. It's stupid. The killing is off the charts. It's destroying these two countries. It's not good for them. It's not good for America. And I think finally we're at a stage where Zelensky seems to want to follow that direction. And that's a good thing because I think the president has an opportunity that, frankly, we haven't had for the past 4 years to actually bring this conflict to a close.
Yeah, that'd be good. That we stop the killing. That'd be really important. You talked earlier about the role of the vice president and how it's different with each presidency. How are you doing the job differently than Kamala did it?
Well, I don't have 4 shots of vodka before every meeting. That's one way I think that Kamala really tried to bring herself into the role is these word salads, and I think that I would need the help of a lot of alcohol to answer a question the way that Kamala Harris answered questions. I mean, look, man, I don't know. My sense is, and this is a little bit of guesswork. Obviously, I don't talk to Kamala Harris or Joe Biden very often. But my sense is that there wasn't a level of trust between Biden and Harris. And so, she was just less empowered to do her job. And, luckily I'm in a situation where the president trusts me, where if he asks me to do something, he believes it's going to happen. And obviously, we'll talk about it and check in. But I feel empowered in a way that I think a lot of vice presidents haven't been. But that's all in the service of accomplishing the president's vision. And I think I try to remind myself of that, every single day, that the American people elected Donald J. Trump to do a job. For him to do that job successfully, the people around him, starting at the top with the vice president, have to do their jobs well.
Is it true that she refused to welcome you to the vice president's official residence at the Naval Observatory before you took office? Did she block you from that?
Yeah, there was some weird thing where, my wife, so we have 3 young kids, 7, 5, and 3, and so we wanted the kids to see this place before they moved into it. And for whatever reason, man, I don't know if it was a staff issue, I don't know if it was Kamala Harris herself, but they just would not, even with me not there, they would not allow the 3 kids just to come by and see this place that they're going to live in. And I imagine a lot of your listeners have kids. Kids get nervous about big moves. And we just wanted them to actually see this place. That didn't happen, but it's all water under the bridge. The kids are living in the vice president's residence now. They love it. There's a lot of space, especially for Washington, D.C., and we're having a good time.
Yeah, it's a great place. Speaking of the vice presidency, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz ran against you for the post. He said this week...
I'm aware.
He said this week that he can beat most Trump supporters up. And I wonder, as you hear that, were you ever physically intimidated by Tim Walz on that debate stage?
I have to say, Vince, I was never physically intimidated by Tim Walz. I saw those comments, and I just, there's a little bit of a thing where the Democrats have become so unpopular among young men in particular, but really all men, that I think they have to posture and pretend. And who goes on TV and says I could beat up a large group of people? I just think that it's a guy who doesn't actually know how to relate. who's trying to say something that sounds relatable, and it just comes across, and unfortunately the way that Tim Walz sometimes comes across. So I'm not too worried about him. You hear people, say that he wants to take a bigger leadership role, might run for the Senate in Minnesota. I'm not too worried about Tim Walz as a political talent. We're just going to focus on doing our job, and when Tim Walz says something crazy, we'll laugh at it and move on.
I like laughing at Tim Walz. All right, let's talk. But let's talk about actual physical violence that's going on right now in the country. There are terror attacks all over on these Tesla vehicles, Tesla dealerships. Lots of left-wing terrorism taking place, and of course, we also have these swatting incidents against a large number of conservative commentators. And I've noticed that the Trump administration is taking all of these issues really seriously. Do you think we'll ever get to the bottom who is organizing all of this and funding these attacks?
So I don't know, but I do know that we're actually deploying some real law enforcement resources to understand where this stuff is coming from. Whether it's one-off attacks or whether there's something more coordinated. I mean, it really is an act of terrorism, right? If you own a Tesla, whoever you voted for, I think there are a lot of people who are worried right now. Obviously, Elon has taken a big role in the administration. I think he's doing a great job. And so you have these people trying to tear him down and by consequence, tear down the entire administration. They're basically trying to send a message that if you do a good job for President Trump, they're going to come after you. They're going to come after your business. They're going to come after your home. So we are investigating this stuff. A lot of times, the stuff will happen and there aren't real law enforcement resources dedicated to solving it. That has changed with Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. So you never know where an investigation is going to lead. But I really think that we have to do everything we can. We are doing everything that we can to get to the bottom of it. And if we identify people who've committed crimes, man, we're going to prosecute them. The other thing I always wonder with this stuff is, this is not cheap, right? Terrorism is not cheap. We saw that in the Middle East 20, 25 years ago. You had some very wealthy financiers of al-Qaeda. My guess is that if we do get to the bottom of this, we're going to find out that there are some very crazy, very deranged, but very wealthy left-wing people who are funding this stuff. And I think that is the most important thing that we have to focus on. It's not the foot soldiers. It's the guy at the top writing the checks.
Yeah, I saw Elon Musk had said a couple weeks ago that he believes that the protests against Tesla, at least the protests, are at least funded by, he thinks, Act Blue, which is one of the big economic engines on the left. He pointed to George Soros and Reid Hoffman. I should also point out that those two names I just mentioned worked really actively to stop you from becoming vice president of the United States. And of course, right at the top, stop President Trump from ever becoming president of the United States again. So it would be consistent if they're still funding efforts to stop the Trump agenda.
Yeah, it would be. And I don't know that it's them. I wouldn't be shocked if it was. But we know that there are a lot of crazy people who have a lot of money who I think are willing to let the country burn, quite literally, so long as it helps them accomplish their political goals. So it's really sick, twisted stuff, man. But we're not going to stand for it. I think that's what's different about President Trump's administration is, for really the first time in my life, I think you have a conservative president who's actually pushing back against this stuff in a very real and substantive way. Has actually empowered his FBI and law enforcement agencies to go after some of these psychos. That's what we have to do. It's what we're going to keep on doing, and we'll see where it leads. But I'm optimistic that if we actually force these bad guys to suffer some consequences, they'll stop doing crazy stuff.
Yeah, it does seem like outside of the actual organized efforts, it does seem like a lot of Americans, not a lot, but some percentage, have succumbed to this idea that mob violence is the way to redress your political opposition. I just saw this week that, like, for instance, on Jimmy Kimmel's television program and on The Daily Show this week, you have audiences outright cheering, seeing the images of Teslas on fire across the country. And I saw that and I thought, man, that really is a sign of how much the left has conditioned people to think that that's acceptable.
Yeah, though I will say in defense of the American people, Jimmy Kimmel's show is so unfunny and boring and left-wing that it's probably not a representative sample. If you go to a Jimmy Kimmel live viewing, you have to really be a humorless scold. And so my hope is that that's isolated to a very small number of people. But you are right that we've seen this embrace of mob violence from some corners of the far left. I think the only way to deal with it is to force people who endorse that stuff, who actually commit violence, to actually go to prison and to suffer some consequences. And man, I like left, right, we can argue all day about tax policy or regulatory policy or what our foreign policy should be. I just, at a fundamental, visceral, gut level, I'm disgusted by violence on behalf of your politics. Like, this is not what America was supposed to be. We can argue at each other, we can yell at each other, we can vote against people we don't like, but you don't get to commit violence over politics in this country. It's third world, disgusting crap, and I don't think that we can tolerate it.
There are other people trying to slow down the Trump agenda. There are these judges. Judge Boasberg comes to mind. Lots of judges who are trying to basically say that the president can't exercise the powers of the presidency. You're an attorney. How do you assess the legal battles here?
Yeah, I bet all those judges are huge fans of Jimmy Kimmel, by the way. But I think, Vince, that one, we have an appeals process. I think the president's been very clear. He's going to respect that process. He's going to take his case all the way to the Supreme Court, or I guess his cases all the way to the Supreme Court. And he, you know, I will say that I think the Chief Justice and other judges or justices on the Supreme Court, like, this is a real opportunity to actually set proper boundaries for both the courts but also the executive. Mm-hmm. You can't have a judge who's controlling troop deployments. You can't have a judge who's controlling how we enforce our immigration laws. You know, the American people actually invested the President of the United States with some of these core law enforcement authorities, and the President has to be able to do the job the American people elected him to do. I think what you're seeing really is judicial overreach on a scale we've never seen in the history of this country, and I think the Supreme Court has got to put a stop to it. We're actually going to, we're of course going to make those arguments to the justice of the Supreme Court. I think that we're going to win, but we can't let rogue judges tell the president how to conduct the people's business. And Vince, there's another element of this that I don't think anybody has really picked up on, but it's really important. Like, if you think of the courts, right, to get access to the courts, let's be honest, that's mostly for, people filing lawsuits. You got to have money to do that stuff. You've got to have money to hire fancy lawyers in civil suits. The way that most normal people, they're not filing lawsuits when they want to accomplish something in their government. They vote. They vote for their legislators and they vote for their president. So if we allow basically a bunch of rich lawyers to run the government, but we don't allow normal people who voted for a president to see their government run the way they see fit, that I think what we're really doing is we're not just turning over the power of the government to rogue judges, we're actually depriving the American people of their God-given right to control their government. Yeah. And it's really a fundamental violation of how the American system was set up.
Yes.
We can't stand for it. We won't stand for it. We're going to keep fighting back against this
stuff.
Such
a smart point. Okay, finally, you gave a speech this week to the American Dynamism Summit. You said that President Trump's job is to reverse 40 years of failed economic policy in this country. So I want to ask you this. Can he do that in just 4 years? And if he can't, are you personally ready to give us another 8 years in the White House to see that plan through?
Well, I think he can do a lot in the next 4 years. And, fundamentally, we just have to do a good job for the American people over the next 4 years. He did a lot of good in 2016 to 2020. And if you look, one of the charts that I care the most about is, what are median wages? In other words, what is the worker in the middle of our society? How well are they doing? And you saw those folks get the biggest pay raise of the last generation during the first Trump administration. That's fundamentally our goal. And I think that if we bring manufacturing back, if we unleash American technology, if we reject this globalist idea that the way to produce economic growth is to import cheap labor, I really think that we can do a lot in 4 years. Are you going to fix every problem in 4 years? Of course not. We certainly need to make sure this movement continues over the next 4 years. But I think if we do a good job over the next 4 years, the American people will give us an opportunity to keep on doing good things. And whoever that is, I'm not worried about it. I just want to do a good job as vice president.
Okay, good. And do you have any favorite J.D. Vance memes? Anything you like on the internet these days?
Definitely the Leo DiCaprio one from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he's pointing at the TV screen. That's a really good one. I'm a personal fan of Vance Halen, but that's because I really like the band Van Halen, so that's just my personal preferences. But man, I don't know how that happened or where it came from, but it's been very, very funny to watch your own face become this meme. It's made the job a lot more fun, so I encourage people to keep doing it.
It's hilarious. Thank you very much. The Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance. Good to talk to you, sir.
See you, Vince. Take care, man.
Keep up the great work. There he is. That's the Vice President of the United States, joining us here on this humble program. Really amazing. I want to get your reactions here to the interview with the Vice President of the United States. In a moment, we'll talk to Evita as well. She'll sit down with us and give us that reaction as well. I want to tell people about who's taking care of this program for us. Do you mind? Who's making all of this happen? There's just been so much going on in the world, and you've seen it before when disaster strikes. Grocery store shelves can actually go empty overnight. Overnight. The worst time to prepare is during the aftermath. By then, it might already be too late. Smart Americans trust My Patriot Supply to help them prepare before crisis comes. And right now, they're making it easier than ever. You can order their 4-week emergency food supply today and get a 72-hour food kit completely free. Actually, you'll get 4 72-hour food kits completely free. That's almost 2 weeks of bonus meals at no cost. Each of these My Patriot Supply kits offers over 2,000 calories per day of delicious, easy-to-prepare meals that last up to 25 years. That's real peace of mind. No last-minute panic, no empty shelves, just knowing you're covered. Stock up today before this deal disappears, because when an emergency hits, well, food could be the first thing to go. Go to preparewithvince.com to claim your kit, plus an extra 12 days of food for free, almost 2 weeks of bonus meals at no cost. Once again, that's preparewithvince.com to claim your kit, plus an extra 12 days of food free. Preparewithvince.com. The Vice President of the United States stopping by here on Vince. The reaction pouring in now, people pointing out that the chat is blowing up, which makes it even harder to sort through all of the reactions. Outstanding interview, says RJMB651. Thank you for that. F. Samuelson saying, I'm proud to have Vice President Vance helping us to restore sanity. Tubesy 3 says, thank you, Vince, for bringing on JD. Good interview. Loved the interview. Great reactions here. JD showed up and reminded me a lot of a certain president of the United States with his candor. Joining us now to assess all of it, Evita, first, nice to see you here, and great show this morning. What do you think of the Vice President?
I'll say he's not a DEI hire.
No.
That was very obvious from that interview. He was so eloquent, and it was so funny when he brought up Kamala Harris being drunk all the time. That's obviously, we don't know if that's true or not, but it's a joke on the internet because she sounded so inarticulate the entire campaign cycle.
Yeah, and the entire vice presidency.
And there's such a stark contrast with J.D. Vance. You can tell he really is a very smart man.
Wouldn't you like to see the two of them discuss artificial intelligence?
I would love that.
Just get Kamala Harris on stage, J.D. Vance on stage, the two of them talk about AI together. One of them will know what they're talking about. The other one is just going to spin in circles.
If it's conducted by NBC or ABC or CNN, and then they'll edit it out, all the bad parts, and she'll come out looking wonderful.
Yes.
And then the Trump administration will have to sue them for it.
When he said that I go to meetings without taking 3 shots of tequila, I knew at that moment that JD was here to play today. Like, he was like, I'm in. I'm in. I understand what the mission is here. But that's consistent for him. And I do think it's a big deal. He was nice to kind of talk about it. He was being a little diplomatic, of course, and talking about the Zelensky meeting.
Very
because
professional, yeah.
They're trying to navigate towards a peace. I want to hear all of the nitty-gritty details. I want to hear the gossip, what was going on behind the scenes. But there's a much bigger issue on the line. But the trust that Trump places in this guy, it's noticeable from the outside, don't you think?
It is. And, if you look at how Trump treated Mike Pence, obviously he didn't trust Mike Pence for good reason. But he seems to have a willingness to share the stage, to share the spotlight a little bit with JD, which I think demonstrates how much he trusts him.
Yes.
And I'll just tell you, Vince, as somebody who is a Zoomer, who knows that, Social Security insolvency is on the horizon, and I know that millennials are the first generation to be worse off than their parents in America. I have a lot of trust in J.D. Vance. He actually makes me very optimistic as a young person when he was talking about the economy, when he was talking about foreign policy.
Yeah.
He is young. He understands meme culture. He's super articulate. He's really competent, and it made me, I don't know, I felt a sense of just almost security.
Yes.
Versus Biden and Kamala, who you're just like, who are these guys?
Can we call up cut 6? This is J.D. Vance. I want to show this clip because this gets right to what you're talking about. He gave a speech this week on the economy at the American Dynamism Summit. You heard me refer to it in our conversation. Take a look at what he said about the state of our country over the last 40 years and what needs to change now.
The fundamental goal of President Trump's economic policy is, I think, to undo 40 years of failed economic policy in this country. For far too long, we got addicted to cheap labor, both overseas and by importing it into our own country, and we got lazy. We overregulated our industries instead of supporting them. We overtaxed our innovators instead of making it easier for them to build their great companies. And we made it way too hard to build things and invest things in the United States of America. That stopped 2 months ago, and it will continue to stop, and will continue to fight for American workers and the American businesses that hire them and that support them.
All right, I know that you don't have the earpiece.
I don't have the earpiece.
I do.
You have to
I'll tell you what he
it.
said. He said, we've got 40 years of failed economic policy behind us. And that includes importing tons of cheap labor at the expense of American citizens, over-regulating industries so that we stop innovation here in the United States. And basically, throughout that speech, he talked about how we're a nation of consumers now, kind of like we've inculcated a sort of laziness into the country that has taken away from the American spirit, that we're not producing and instead we're consuming. And first of all, I can't recommend the speech enough. It's really good. But to hear him say that and to give this like hopeful vision of we're going to get the government out of the way, we're going to stop all of the foreign nationals from pouring in and devaluing the labor market, and we're going to prioritize uplifting the American spirit. Why aren't more people talking like this?
Well, I'll tell you, Vince, that was, I mean, I didn't get to hear that clip, but that's something that's been a through line for JD since he's been in politics. He's really an America First man.
Yeah.
And there's this question of what is America? Are we a people with an identity in a physical place, or are we just GDP growth?
Right.
And J.D. Vance is taking this head on, and he's saying, no, we're a people. And what's good policy for America is not just what's going to be good for the economy, but what's going to be good for the actual people living here. And that's why he's tackling this issue of massive imports of illegal and illegal immigrants, devaluing labor, and wanting to bring industry back. And this is something that we haven't seen from Republicans, really. I mean, this is a divorce from traditional Republican policy to now authentically America First policy. And to see JD take the torch on this, carry the torch on this, makes me really, again, Vince, so optimistic.
Okay, so the other piece that I heard him reference, and I'm going to talk about this more as the show moves along, is all of the violence going on across the country right now.
Yeah.
The swatting attacks on conservative commentators. Last night, I saw that one of the national police organizations is now calling for people who believe that they may be targeted in a swatting incident to call their local police department and just give them a heads up. Hey, this is the kind of work I do, and if you ever get a call that's designed to attack my house with police, you should know why that's coming in. Which is, it's just crazy that we even live in an environment like this. But the whole Trump administration seems to be mobilizing against this.
Yeah.
Whether it's the DHS Secretary, Kristi Noem, we saw Kash Patel already indicated, the Deputy Director now of the FBI, Dan Bongino, and the whole team, they're all going after this thing. The Vice President clearly taking it seriously. And did you notice he brought up money and organization multiple times?
Yeah, and that was such an amazing thing to hear. I don't know if you know this, Vince, about me and Michael. We did on-the-ground reporting during the BLM rioting in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw it on the ground where it was left-wing violence torching a working-class, regular American city. And what we noticed was that people from Portland were being imported in on buses.
Yep.
They were coming in. So obviously there's money and there's organization. That he pinpointed that issue. I mean, it's so amazing because for so long we're like, oh, there's this problem with left-wing violence, and we blame it maybe on university indoctrination, but it's much more organized than that. It's much more institutionalized than that.
Yeah. And so if they get to the bottom of that, that's kind of the skeleton key to the whole problem, I think. That's where we start, at least.
I have a question for you,
Yeah.
Vince. Do you think he's the heir apparent?
I do.
Yeah.
So I think right now what we're witnessing is President Trump is giving him strategic distance. So yes, Trump is including him in everything because Trump believes in him. You want to know how he believes in him? Yesterday it was announced that J.D. Vance is taking over all fundraising for the Republican Party.
Wow.
We didn't even talk about that. That he's now the head, he's the chief fundraiser for the RNC. No vice president of the United States has ever been the chief fundraiser for the party. What that means is his job is to shake hands and wrangle dollars out of every donor that he can possibly get in front of.
It's a big job.
It's a huge job.
Yeah.
And that means that he's going to be developing relationships with the biggest donors on the right in the country. if you're developing those relationships right now, literally the first year of the Trump presidency, and you're doing it on behalf of the Republican Party going into the midterms, how do those relationships pay off going into a presidential?
Yeah.
Think about it. He's the vice president of the United States now. These donors are pumped to be in front of J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is the next best thing to Donald Trump himself. They get to be with this guy. They get to work with him. And he develops all that sort of both social and financial capital to mount a massive run for the presidency. So right now, I think, Trump asked, Brett Baer asked Trump about this a few weeks ago. He said, what about J.D. Vance? Is he the heir apparent? The question you just asked me.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't know. We got a lot of great people. He gave like kind of an answer, a little distant answer. Like there's a lot of people here. And I think that Trump probably says that for multiple reasons. One, to give J.D. a shield from the left's attacks, because right now they're focused firing who? Elon and Trump, but mostly Elon. So if the second Trump comes out and goes, this is the guy to run for president in 28, they're going to spend every waking moment trying to destroy him.
Yeah.
The other piece is like, I do think that Trump wants the people around him to all stay hungry. He wants JD to stay hungry. He wants the other people in his cabinet who might want to run for president themselves to stay hungry. So as long as he kind of holds out on giving that endorsement, I think he will inspire the sort of like aggression that all of these guys need to show to demonstrate that they deserve to ever have that job.
I think that's a really smart analysis. And I'll say that there's a narrative right now from the political left that Trump is not endorsing him, that Trump doesn't want him to be the next president because he hasn't explicitly endorsed him. I think that's very silly to say. And if that were the case, you would see Donald Trump sidelighting J.D. Vance.
Big time.
And instead, he
Big
is
time.
at the forefront of this administration.
Yeah, and he's right. He's front and center. And so J.D. Vance has become something of a Swiss Army knife for President Trump. Anything he needs J.D. to do. Another, like, there's only so much time we had to talk to him, but one other piece of his tenure has been his mastery of the United States Senate. All of these confirmation hearings, and let me point specifically to Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearing to become Secretary of Defense. That happens because J.D. got involved. JD is shaking hands and wearing out senators, picking up the phone, calling them. These are his colleagues. He knows them, and guess what? He's smarter than almost every single one of them. He can maneuver, and he did. And so he's been behind the scenes, getting all these cabinet picks through, working with the Senate, being a very good advocate for the Trump agenda. And so really what he's trying to do is not just earn Trump's favor, but more importantly, the people who voted for Trump in the first place. So I think he's on his way.
I do too, and I just wanted to add something that obviously wasn't in the interview, but my mom had the ability to meet Usha Vance recently. They went on a trip together to the Special Olympics overseas. She is a wonderful, wonderful woman, like a wonderful mother. She's not she's a little bit laid back, and people don't ever always see her in the spotlight. But I just have to say, the reviews that my mom had of Usha Vance were glowing, and I think that's going to be somebody we're going to see perhaps take center stage a little more, and people get to know her, and I think they're going to like what they have to see.
It's so cool. Yeah, what a beautiful family. And I love that they're locked in there at the Naval Observatory, although they didn't get the tour from Kamala. How petty and
So
disgraceful
petty.
is that?
And it's also so, I mean, you think about, you mentioned Tim Walz and the jabs that they're taking at J.D. Vance. It's so pitiful, and J.D., I think, had a great response where he was just like, you're going to call me unmasculine, you're going to say, it doesn't matter, right? Like, everybody can observe that Tampon Tim has, has no standing next to J.D. Vance, who's not a DEI hire, who's articulate, who's a real man with a family, and doesn't have a bizarre backstory like Tim Walz. There is really no competition.
Yeah.
The Democratic Party is falling by the wayside.
Yeah, the masculine response is not to become a hysterical spaz.
Yeah.
Which is not J.D. Vance. Thank you, Evita.
Of course.
Great to see
Thank
you.
you
Keep
for
up the
having
great
me.
work.
Thank
Evita
you.
setting records every day at 9 o'clock in the morning. It has been amazing. Your responses are pouring in as I try to keep track of this chat here on Rumble. I really do, and it moves at such tremendous speed that it's difficult sometimes. A lot of people giving great compliments on the interview and our analysis just now. Thank you for that. And Duck Goose 96 saying, confident people don't need to respond to BS. You're right about that, Duck Goose 96. You're very right about that. You got to be confident to have a screen name like that, Duck Goose 96. Let's see. Kamala didn't want to expose JD's family to all the alcohol she had in there. That's what Tommy G 262 says. So yeah, that's right. Kamala was doing him a favor, keeping the kids away from all the booze. It's amazing. Amazing. All right, more in a moment as we dive into the left's bloodthirst And again, how the Trump administration is responding to all of it. You heard Vice President Vance. We'll hear from other members of the Trump administration in just a moment. You know, with the Make America Healthy Again movement in full force, I'm totally inspired to make my own health and fitness a total priority again. I have been. And this is why I'm excited to be working with Don and the team at Jacked Up Fitness, an amazing American company. Their commercial-grade Power Rack Pro has everything that you need to get a full-body workout from home. The cable crossover system, the integrated 200-pound weight stacks, a Smith machine. It's all together. It allows you to do hundreds of exercises, basically everything that you can do at the gym. Now, my wife, definitely my wife, has always been into fitness. I was touch and go. I was into fitness for a while as a kid, playing all sorts of sports, coming up through high school, going into college. And then eventually I kind of like fell off the wagon. I wasn't doing the fitness thing. I'm back on now. I love it. And you know what's going to make it so much easier? The Power Rack Pro. A badass all-in-one Power Rack Pro right there in my house. It's going to be a game changer for my family. I think we're getting it fully set up next week. I can't wait. We're super excited about the Get Jacked Up program as well that has full-body video workouts led by celebrity trainers Kim Lyons and Clark Bartram. You literally just press play and you follow along. It's great, especially if you're just getting started. So listen, I'm doing this. You should too. Let's do it together. Go to getjackedup.com. That's getjackedup.com. Sign up to access the program right now for free. And when you're ready to order your Power Rack Pro, save 10% by using my promo code VINCE. No more excuses. This is going to be epic. Go to getjackedup.com. Love it. Absolutely love it. All right. So, what am I looking at, fellas? Oh, Guy knocking on the glass to indicate to me that I have to tell you about this. Oh, and I really should. This is great. If you don't have essential medications on hand, now is the time to stock up. Being prepared is crucial, and you don't want to be scrambling for medications when you or your family actually need them most. We have a great sponsor called All Family Pharmacy. They have an incredible deal for you. Buy one, get one free on ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. These are life-saving medications. They've helped so many Americans stay protected, and now is your chance to secure them at the best price. Listen, All Family Pharmacy takes care of everything for you. They can provide the doctor prescription and ship straight to your door. You don't have to worry about anything. Ordering is simple. Just go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Vince. Select ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine, and they'll double your order for free. This is a deal you don't want to miss. The BOGO offer ends Sunday, March 23rd, so don't wait. Make sure you stock up before it's too late. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Vince and place your order today. Again, that's allfamilypharmacy.com/Vince. All Family Pharmacy and its products are not intended as a substitute for professional medical treatment or advice. Consult with your healthcare provider. Boom! All right. Let's get into what else is happening. So, the effort to destroy anything that you love is, of course, continuing. The left's bloodthirst is absolutely wild. And let me just start with kind of what I mentioned to the Vice President of the United States, and I'll mention to you again here now. These audiences, have you detected these left-wing audiences who are cheering for the destruction of people's private property? They love this. And they also don't care if somebody gets hurt in the process. Look first at Jimmy Kimmel. This is cut 12. Jimmy Kimmel talking about these Tesla vehicles at being destroyed across the country. And here's what he had to say.
Tesla stock is way down, almost disastrously so. People have been vandalizing Tesla vehicles, new Tesla vehicles. Please don't vandalize. Don't ever vandalize Tesla vehicles. And so...
That's the joke. That's the joke. Don't vandalize the Tesla vehicles, he says with a wink. Don't do it. That's Jimmy Kimmel. And it happened again last night on The Daily Show. The Daily Show, which is still on with a number of unnamed hosts rotating through with each passing day. And The Daily Show over on Comedy Central was explaining, yeah, there's all sorts of domestic terror attacks happening on Tesla right now. And the audience went wild.
They're taking to the streets or the parking lots.
Tonight, the FBI and ATF now investigating multiple cases of possible arson targeting Teslas and Cybertrucks.
This dramatic video shows multiple cars in flames. Police say the attacker used Molotov cocktails. It's the latest in more than a dozen instances of arson and vandalism targeting Tesla.
The same suspect shot more Teslas with a gun. Tesla Cybertrucks were set on fire in Kansas City, and earlier this month,
cheering the gun,
shots
the
fired
gunshot.
at a Tesla dealership in Oregon. Cybertrucks on fire in Seattle.
Incidents of arson. Someone lit a bunch of Teslas on fire. And here's the thing, I get.
So there you go. So even at the end of that, the host guy says, oh, you guys are big fans of domestic terrorism. And then the audience cheers. This is the bloodthirst of the American left. It's amazing. Like, how many lectures has the left given you about the right? And, the disinformation that's out there. People are being misled. Why is it that they voted for Trump? That the only way that you could possibly vote for Trump is that you're a sucker. You fell for it. You voted for Trump. Meanwhile, all of the left's media outlets have either explicitly or implicitly breathed life into this notion that the only way that they can exist in this country as lefties is to conduct physical violence against their political opponents. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing it in the form of swatting. We're seeing it in the form of these attacks on Tesla dealerships, gunshots being fired through both cars and dealerships, Molotov cocktails being thrown. These are the tactics of the left, of the fascist left. It's true. And it's continuing. Now, the Kimmel clip that I just played for you from 2 nights ago now, where he gives that wink and a nod towards this idea that it's okay, yeah, go destroy Teslas. I'm saying don't, but this pregnant pause is very suggestive that you should. By the time he got on the air last night, the lawyers at ABC, Disney, clearly tried to get to him. And so this is his attempt at a walk back. But pay attention, because by the conclusion of the walk back, he's once again saying it's kind of justified to attack Tesla.
Even been on incidents of arson. Someone lit a bunch of Teslas on fire. And here's the thing, I get that people are upset. Burning a car might not be great for the environment. I don't think that's what they had in mind when they invented the electric car. In Las Vegas yesterday, someone threw a Molotov cocktail at a Tesla service center. At least 5 Teslas blew up, 1 from the Molotov and 4 because that's just what Teslas do sometimes. Right? And no one should be setting fires. You could kill somebody, you could hurt somebody. Elon Musk might not care about other people, but decent Americans should. The world's richest man, has been trying to drum up sympathy for himself lately. His sales are down, his stock is down. Last night he was somber as he went through this with Sean Hannity.
Tesla is a peaceful company. We've never done anything harmful.
He's right.
I've never done anything harmful. I've only done productive things.
He's right.
So I think we just have...
They're laughing at him.
A deranged... there's some kind of mental illness thing going on here, because this doesn't make any sense.
Well, let me see if I can explain it for you. When you pull out a chainsaw to celebrate firing thousands of people, they get mad. It's just, my God, I mean...
So making the government more efficient, it's justification for destroying property and menacing American citizens and causing chaos in American cities. If you get control of the government, which is, of course, on behalf of the American people, you deserve to be attacked. That's the position Jimmy Kimmel's taking. So even in that awful attempt at a walk back, he steps on a rake before he gets there. It's amazing. It's amazing. Lots of lefties continue to call for these attacks on Tesla, and they keep dressing it up in the language of, nonviolent. No. What you're trying to do is whip up the mob. Jasmine Crockett was on a call yesterday. They did these stupid left-wing video calls where they rotate in all of their best celebrities, including Jasmine Crockett, to declare that we need to, quote, take down Tesla, an American company which employs lots of Americans, which up until 5 minutes ago was cherished by the American left because it included electric vehicles. Here's Jasmine Crockett being typically insane.
Starting with, on March 29th, it's my birthday. And all I want to see happen on my birthday is for Elon to be taken down. Yes. Listen, I have learned as I serve on the Doge Oversight Committee that there is only one language that the people that are in charge understand right now. And that language is money.
Is money. So if we destroy his business, he won't have money, and then he will go away. That's the thought process. How demented do you have to be to say that the gift you want for your birthday is misery? For my birthday, I would like other people to be completely miserable. That's the birthday gift that I desire. Jasmine Crockett was not alone. There is a long ago washed-up actor by the name of John Cusack who was also on that call, and he immediately just went on a completely unhinged rant about Elon Musk.
Musk is kind of this arch villain of late-stage capitalism, and he seems like this clown and this buffoon. But like Alex said, this is a man who made a Sieg Heil Nazi salute, not only in public, but
at disinformation.
A presidential victory party. It's good to remember that these are unprecedented times
what does he
of
think
mass
he's like a karate guy? What is that
going on in the United States right now? And that, like Trump,
I wore stuff like that when I was a kid. I would take like a T-shirt sleeve and put it over my head.
He's a sociopath and a ghoul. And I mean those terms very precisely, because who else would use his own child as a sympathy prop while literally taking starving aid away from people all over the world?
Literally.
He's literally killing people.
Literally.
People are going to die because of this madness.
Literally. What did Dan Bongino think of the word literally? Not a fan. I'm seeing multiple thumbs up in the control room. Okay, so here's the thing. These people are crazy, and it's obvious. They're documenting their mental illness live on those streams. And they are trying to once again breathe life into the attacks on Tesla and on Americans and these poor dealership owners and the people who try and buy these vehicles, the people who take their families around in them. They're all under attack right now. Now, the upside, one of the upsides here that we can detect is that we have a response coming from the Trump administration. They're getting serious about this. Listen to Caroline Leavitt yesterday. This is cut 5. Caroline Leavitt talking about these acts of domestic terrorism. The White House taking this seriously.
Does the White House have any indication that this is some sort of coordinated movement or that it's being funded by some outside group? And do you know if the investigation by the DOJ is being investigated as incidents of organized terror?
I believe the Attorney General has made her comments clear on that. She is investigating these events as acts of domestic terrorism, and we fully condemn them. And as I said earlier to Jackie's question, we think it's despicable what is happening to not just this American company, but also their innocent employees. And again, innocent Americans who drive these vehicles. We condemn it wholeheartedly.
We condemn it wholeheartedly. We're investigating this as acts of domestic terrorism. Pam Bondi at the Justice Department is on this. She's not alone. Now, let me tell you what's happening. I am seeing an all-of-government response now to the attacks on Tesla, the attacks on Elon, which, by the way, you and I both know that include massive threats to his life. We're not seeing all the reports on that subject, but we know what's going on. This is the way, unfortunately, too many radical lefties operate. It's also the swatting incidents against conservative commentators. I'm seeing pictures of, who's the guy? Owen Schroyer. Did you see that guy? There was cops pointing guns at him this week because he was caught up in another swatting incident. There's a lot of people who've been subjected to this, and it's horrific. And God forbid somebody be gunned down in one of these swatting incidents, killed, because that is the outcome that the left desires. That's what happens here. And the consequences for this need to be on another level. You've got to be locked away for years, at the very least. We've got other members of the government responding here. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem declaring last night, under President Trump's leadership, we will not sit idly by as conservative new media and their families are being targeted by false swatting. DHS Gov, that is their account, has the ability to trace phone numbers and track location information. We will use it to hunt these cowards down. This is an attack on our law enforcement and innocent families, and we will prosecute it as such. Take a look at this. So what you're seeing on your screen, video clips of this guy, Owen Schroyer, being attacked. And nobody knows. The cops don't know that there's nothing going on at the house. They've been given a 911 call to tell them something horrific is happening there. Also, you saw the guy walking away with pizza boxes. I guess there's part of this series of events is the swatting attack and then pizzas being delivered to the house for God knows what reason afterwards, over and over. But this is the left. This is the left, and this is organized. It's coordinated. And getting to the bottom of this is important. Kristi Noem indicating we're tracking the communications. She's not alone on the communications front. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr has indicated that he too is getting involved. The recent surge in swatting attacks against conservatives, he writes, is a dangerous form of political violence. I've been in touch with law enforcement to ensure they have access to the trace-back resources that locate a call's originating point. Bad actors will face accountability. I like Brendan Carr. Brendan Carr's a good FCC chairman. He's a bulldog. He's the right guy to be in that job. Who else? Oh, that's right. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino has also weighed in on this subject. Dan says that communication and transparency are my priorities. We work for you, the American citizen. Our teams are actively working on the Tesla incidents and the swatting incidents, along with our other responsibilities, to keep the homeland safe. Thank you, Dan, he says. No formalities with Mr. Bongino. It's not Deputy Director Bongino. It's just Dan. To you, it's Dan. To me, it's Dan. Mr. Dan. I love Dan. Dan's so great. So we've got some responses here. Senator Mike Lee also says that swatting must end in prison time, clearly. And we've got to, yeah, cutesy time is over. You're totally right. Who said that? Cutesy time, totally right. RM99. We've got to get control of all of this and very quickly. Very quickly. Because if President Trump was elected for anything, it's to restore order to our country, to restore order. And the left, realizing that's the mission, has decided they will try to maximize disorder. The more disorder they create, the more they can prove that Trump failed in the mission to bring about a peace. Don't let them do it. So here's what we do going forward. One, we support law enforcement to get to the bottom of this. We encourage them with frequency to get to the bottom of this. Help them in any way you possibly can. Also, let's be honest, be armed. Learn how, if you don't own a gun yet, learn how to use one, purchase one, and protect your family. Be armed. Because, you know, when disaster strikes, the police are minutes away. You need to be able to protect yourself. And so we have a situation here where things are deeply out of control. President Trump was elected to restore order, and I really do think it's on its way, but it's going to take that whole of government approach, and it's going to take an American public who, once again, puts our foot down and says, we're putting an end to this. We really very much need to. Last clip I want to show you. Do we have the clip of Tim Walz talking about World War II by any chance? Did you pull that for me? Tim Walz was on a stage this week, and there was a guy who claimed that we're in World War II right now. This is the equivalent of World War II, fighting back against Trump. And listen to Tampon Tim Walz react to this deranged member of his audience.
Nazis, end quote.
The governor claims comments that he made this week were aimed at actual Nazis and not at the Trump administration or Republicans.
The greatest generation saved us in World War II from Hitler. This is our World War II to save the world from Trump. I agree. I made a statement that the road to authoritarianism is littered with people telling you you're overreacting. You're not overreacting. They got all angry when I talked about fascism. I said, quit exhibiting fascist tendencies, and we won't say that.
Oh, really? Fascist tendencies. So wait, who's been imprisoning their political opponents? Oh, that's the left. Who's been censoring their political opponents? Oh, that's the left. Who's been ignoring the sovereignty of the United States of America? Well, that would be the left. Who's been importing criminals and drugs that kill Americans into the United States? Once again, that is the left. All of the fascist tendencies you hear this guy referring to on that stage, of course, are a form of projection. The left is fascist here in the United States of America because they know they can't succeed on their ideas. It's about not only shutting down and stifling their opposition, but trying to outright eliminate their opposition in some cases. And once again, you have another enthusiastic left-wing crowd champing at the bit, braying about how excited they are to wage World War II against a duly elected president of the United States. Sounds kind of insurrection-y, doesn't it? That's what's happening. It's happening inside of lousy comedy shows that very few people watch, but has audiences full of people who are screaming for more blood. It happens inside of whatever room Tim Walz was standing on in that auditorium, where somebody makes a delusional analogy, and then Tim Walz says he agrees, and that fighting back against the duly elected president of the United States is exactly like fighting back against Hitler? It's insane. Last point on this. Have you noticed that the left likes using World War II analogies all the time, but they have no idea how to use them? They don't even know what the sides were. They don't know what even happened in the war. They just know that I'm going to rely on these analogies to make me sound like I know what I'm talking about for the rest of my life. It's amazing. And it was, once again, on display in that ludicrous room. Lots of thank yous coming in for Dan Bongino, the work that he's putting in right now already, Deputy Director of the FBI. Pretty good, actually. We're only on Thursday of the very first week of his time in the Bureau. Fantastic news. Tomorrow, a little programming note for you because you deserve one. Donald Trump Jr. is in the house. You ready for this? Donald Trump Jr. Got a lot of questions for him. We got a chance to talk to the Vice President of the United States. We're going to talk to Donald Trump Jr. tomorrow. I'm going to have him sign one of Guy's cards. Guy, give me that card. Where's that card at? Show me. Give me both cards. I want to see these real fast. Guy, come here. Guy's not going to be in studio tomorrow. So
this is the one.
Yeah, I'm showing him. Here, give me a zoom. Give me a tight zoom on this, would you? You see this one right here? Can I tell people the name of this game? It's called Flesh and Blood. That's the name of this game. Guy likes it. That signature is the President of the United States. That's Donald Trump. And just to be clear, this is the second most valuable card that Guy owns. Guy owns a really, really valuable card. He told me it's one of 16 on the planet. So this is not quite as valuable, but it's up there. That's the second. This one is not yet signed. And tomorrow, if he is willing, Donald Trump Jr. will affix his signature to a beautiful holographic card. Look at that. Look at the colors on that thing. It's going to be so nice. That's tomorrow. Join us on The Vince Show for the exclusive interview with Donald Trump Jr. Up next on Rumble, the great Steven Crowder. Stay tuned for that.